There's a phase in personal growth that nobody warns you about, a phase where you start seeing the truth about your life, and it doesn't feel liberating, it feels crushing. You look at your relationships and realize they're surface level. You look at your job and realize it's draining your soul. You look at your habits and realize they're slowly killing you. You look at your beliefs and realize they were never really yours to begin with. And suddenly everything that used to make sense doesn't make sense anymore. Everyone who used to understand you doesn't understand you anymore. Everything that used to bring you joy feels empty now. This is awakening. And at first it feels exactly like depression. But here's what you need to understand. You're not falling apart. You're waking up. And waking up is the most disorienting, lonely, painful experience you'll ever go through before it becomes the most beautiful one. Awakening isn't a gentle process. It's not a peaceful meditation on a mountaintop where everything suddenly makes sense and you feel enlightened. That's the Instagram version. The real version feels like dying while you're still alive, because that's exactly what's happening. The old version of you, the version that played small, that followed the script, that lived for approval, that chased things that didn't matter, that version is dying, and you have to grieve it. You have to grieve the life you thought you wanted, the person you thought you were, the dreams you thought were yours, but were actually just borrowed from society, from your parents, from people who never even knew the real you. And grief, no matter what form it takes, feels like depression. When you start waking up, you start seeing things other people can't see yet. And that makes you feel alone in a room full of people. You're at a party and everyone's laughing, but you can see how hollow it all is. You're in a conversation and people are talking about things that used to matter to you, but now it all feels meaningless. You're scrolling through social media and everyone seems happy with their lives, but you can see through the facade now. You're not better than anyone. You're just awake. And being awake in a sleeping world is the loneliest feeling there is. Your old friends don't get you anymore. Your family thinks you've changed, and not in a good way. The things that used to excite you now bore you. The people you used to vibe with now drain you. And you start wondering, am I depressed? Am I broken? Did I make a mistake by questioning everything? No. You're just in the in-between phase. You've left the old life but haven't fully stepped into the new one yet. And that in-between space feels like darkness. But darkness isn't the absence of light. It's the space where your eyes adjust so you can see what was always there. Awakening begins with disillusionment. And disillusionment feels terrible because it means seeing through the illusions you've been living under. You realize that success as society defines it doesn't equal fulfillment. You realize that most people are running a race they never chose to run. You realize that the life you've been building might not be the life you actually want. You realize your job title doesn't define your worth. Your bank account doesn't measure your value. Your relationship status doesn't determine your completeness. Your productivity doesn't prove your purpose. All the things you were told would make you happy, the degree, the promotion, the house, the car, the relationship, the body, the achievements, you got some of them and you're still empty. Or you're chasing them and you're starting to wonder if they even matter. This realization doesn't feel like freedom at first. It feels like depression. Because now you're asking, if none of that matters, then what does? If I'm not who I thought I was, then who am I? If life isn't what I thought it was, then what is it? And those questions, when you're standing in the rubble of your old worldview, feel terrifying. Awakening means you can't go back to the things that used to numb you. The distractions don't work anymore. The superficial conversations feel suffocating. The mindless entertainment feels mind-numbing. The toxic relationships feel intolerable. You've outgrown your old coping mechanisms, but you haven't developed new healthy ones yet, so you're just raw, exposed, feeling everything at maximum volume with no buffer. You can't pretend anymore. You can't fake smile through things that hurt your soul. You can't small talk when big questions are burning inside you. You can't play roles that don't fit you anymore. And without those old comforts, without those old masks, you feel vulnerable, exposed, lost. This vulnerability feels like depression, but it's actually the beginning of authenticity. One of the most painful parts of awakening is the identity crisis that comes with it. For so long, you knew who you were. You had labels, roles, identities. You were the successful one, the reliable one, the funny one, the smart one, the good son or daughter, the loyal friend, the dedicated employee. But now you're questioning all of it. And when you strip away all those labels, all those roles, all those identities that you borrowed or that were given to you, you're left with a terrifying question: who am I without all of that? You look in the mirror and you don't recognize yourself, not physically but spiritually. The person looking back at you feels like a stranger. And that stranger doesn't have answers. They only have questions. This identity crisis feels like depression because you're experiencing a kind of death, the death of who you thought you were. And you don't know yet who you're becoming. You're in the cocoon phase. And inside the cocoon, the caterpillar doesn't feel like it's transforming into a butterfly. It feels like it's dissolving into nothing. As you awaken, you start making different choices. You start setting boundaries. You start saying no to things that don't serve you. You start distancing yourself from toxic people. You start prioritizing your peace over people's approval. And people don't like it. They say you've changed. They say you're not fun anymore. They say you think you're better than everyone else. They say you're being selfish. They say you're going through a phase. They say you need therapy. And maybe you do need therapy. Awakening doesn't mean you shouldn't get support, but you start feeling guilty. You start questioning yourself. You start wondering if you're the problem. Am I being too sensitive? Am I overthinking everything? Am I pushing good people away? Am I making a mistake? And that guilt, that self-doubt, that judgment from others, it all compounds into something that feels exactly like depression. But here's the truth. You're not depressed because something's wrong with you. You're grieving because something's right with you. You're finally honoring your truth, and that truth is incompatible with the life you've been living. The dark night of the soul. Every spiritual tradition talks about this phase. The dark night of the soul, the wilderness, the void, the descent. It's the phase where everything you thought you knew gets questioned, where every certainty becomes uncertain, where the ground beneath your feet disappears and you're free-falling with no idea where you'll land. You question God, you question the universe, you question meaning, you question purpose, you question if any of this matters, you question if you matter. This isn't clinical depression, though it can coexist with it, and if you're struggling, please seek professional help. But this existential despair, this dark night, is actually a necessary part of awakening, because you can't discover your truth until you question all the lies. You can't find your purpose until you dismantle all the false purposes. You can't become who you're meant to be until you let go of who you've been pretending to be. The dark night isn't the end, it's the middle. It's the tunnel you have to walk through to get to the light on the other side. Awakening feels like depression at first because growth requires discomfort. Evolution requires destruction. Rebirth requires death. You can't hold on to the old life and step into the new one at the same time. You can't cling to old beliefs and embrace new truths simultaneously. You can't stay in your comfort zone and transform your life in the same breath. Something has to die for something new to live. And death, even the death of things that were hurting you, feels painful. Think about a snake shedding its skin. It's necessary for growth, but the process is uncomfortable, vulnerable, painful. The old skin has to come off. There's no way around it. You're shedding your old skin, and yes, it feels terrible, but it's the only way to grow into the bigger version of yourself that's waiting. But here's where the story changes. Here's where awakening transforms from feeling like depression to feeling like liberation. There comes a moment, and it's different for everyone, where something shifts, where the fog starts to clear, where the grief starts to ease, where the questions start to get answers. You realize that the emptiness you're feeling isn't because something's wrong with your life. It's because you're finally ready for something more. You realize that the loneliness isn't because you're broken. It's because you're growing beyond the crowd, and growth is always a solo journey at first. You realize that the pain isn't punishing you, it's purifying you, burning away everything that isn't real so only the truth remains. And slowly, piece by piece, you start rebuilding. But this time, you're not building based on what you should do. You're building based on what feels true, what feels aligned, what feels like you. And then something beautiful happens. The depression starts to lift. Not because your circumstances changed, but because you changed. Not because you found all the answers, but because you made peace with the questions. You start connecting with people who are also awake, and suddenly you're not alone anymore. You start finding purpose in your pain, meaning in your struggle, wisdom in your wounds. You start trusting yourself again, but this time it's a deeper trust. Not trust in your ego, but trust in your soul. Not trust that you have it all figured out, but trust that you're exactly where you need to be. The things that used to drain you start falling away naturally. The relationships that were toxic end, the jobs that were soul-crushing lead you elsewhere. The habits that were destructive lose their power, and new things start appearing. New connections that feel real, new opportunities that feel aligned, new dreams that feel authentic, new versions of yourself that feel true. The depression doesn't turn into toxic positivity or spiritual bypassing. It transforms into groundedness, into presence, into peace that isn't dependent on circumstances. You're not happy all the time. That's not what awakening is, but you're real, you're authentic. You're free. Looking back, you realize that what felt like depression was actually the most important phase of your life because it forced you to question everything, and in questioning everything, you discovered what actually mattered. You discovered that you don't need permission to be yourself. You discovered that your worth isn't up for debate. You discovered that peace is more valuable than approval. You discovered that authenticity is more important than acceptance. You discovered that you're stronger than you thought, braver than you believed, more resilient than you imagined. The phase that felt like depression was actually your initiation, your invitation to a deeper life, your portal to your purpose. If you're in that phase right now, where awakening feels like depression, where seeing the truth feels like suffocating, where growing feels like dying, I need you to hear this. You are not broken. You are breaking open. You are not lost. You are finding yourself. You are not depressed. You are awakening, and awakening is messy and painful and confusing before it becomes clear. What you're feeling is real. It's valid, it's heavy, and it's okay to struggle with it. It's okay to seek help. It's okay to talk to a therapist. It's okay to lean on people who understand. It's okay to not be okay while you're in this phase. But also know this phase is temporary. The darkness you're walking through isn't your destination, it's the path to your liberation. Every person who has truly awakened has walked through this darkness. Every spiritual teacher, every conscious leader, every authentic soul, they've all been where you are, and they made it through. And so will you. The awakening process is not linear. Some days you'll feel clear. Other days you'll feel like you're back in the fog. Some days you'll feel free. Other days you'll feel trapped. Some days you'll feel grateful for the journey. Other days you'll resent every step. That's normal. That's human. That's real awakening, not the sanitized version you see in self-help books. But keep walking, keep questioning, keep growing, keep honoring what's true even when it hurts. Because on the other side of this depression-like awakening is a life you can't even imagine right now. A life where you're fully yourself. A life where you're no longer performing for approval. A life where your peace isn't for sale. A life where you finally feel home in your own skin. The caterpillar doesn't know it's becoming a butterfly while it's dissolving in the cocoon. It just knows it's uncomfortable and confusing and dark. But the butterfly always emerges, and you will too. This is Motivation Thrones reminding you what feels like depression might actually be the beginning of your awakening. And your awakening, as painful as it is right now, is the best thing that will ever happen to you. Stay with it. The breakthrough is coming.